You're listening to a podcast from thespoilist.com. Welcome to First Contact, for kids. I'm Andrew.
I'm James.
And I'm Alex.
This time we are watching Power Play. It first aired the week of 24th of February 1992. It had a teleplay by Rennie Balsher, Herbert J. Wright and Brandon Braga, a story by Paul Rubin and Maurice Hurley, our old friend, and it was directed by David Livingston. James, what is this one all about?
The Enterprise answers a centuries-old distress call, solving the mystery of an early Federation starship that disappeared. But Troi senses life, so an away team takes a shuttle down to investigate, as space rays or something make transporting impossible. So Chief O'Brien beams down with a pattern enhancer, but before they can return, some glowing lights possess the bodies of Troi, Data and O'Brien, leaving Rikers alone because, well, they knew where it had been. They claim to be the dead crew, but act extremely sketchy, taking hostages and shooting everyone. Picard tries to negotiate with them, and they finally confess that they are all prisoners forced to live on a moon as energy, unable to escape. Picard tells them about willing to die for a cause, and fearing a long monologue, they decide to give the bodies back, and then everything is fine.
Well, Alex, you've never seen this episode before. What did you make of it?
Well, obviously, it's not the first time we've attempted to do this episode. We were going to record it previously when we were covering Picard, but we ran out of time, so we're coming back to it now. And, well, was it worth the wait? No, it wasn't. It wasn't worth the wait. I genuinely had to pause. I mean, because obviously we had already looked at it previously with the intention of recording, I was sat there thinking, I feel like I've seen this before. And I had to check in with you two. And it was, okay, I have seen this before. But the more I watched it, I went, but I feel like I haven't just seen it the once. I definitely feel like we've done nearly this episode before.
Hearing Maurice Hurley's name, it does actually feel like a kind of season 2 episode.
I mean, other than a sort of basic idea, I presume that there's very little here that belongs to Maurice Hurley.
But it's even just the basic plot, it's the type of thing you would expect to see in very early Next Generation. Even down to the Planet Hell set.
Yeah.
In some ways, it's quite a clever bottle show, and it is a bottle show, because you get your regulars, or at least your recurring and your regulars, playing basically different characters. So, like, we've got these people in the book, so we can use them as villains. You've got your Planet Hell set. You've got your little shuttle, which I enjoyed immensely when they fly down to the planet and it's on the gimbal and it's shaking from side to side, and then they spin the camera, which is like, just never spin the camera, but they hadn't learned that by the time of Insurrection. So they try to give a bottle show a little bit of scale and not make it a classic, we're just going to talk episode of Star Trek Next Generation, although ultimately it is an episode where there's a lot of talking, but there's a bit of shooting, there's a bit of walking through corridors where force fields go up, but I think it lacks a moral centre. It's not that much fun. I don't want to say that it's basically fine, because it's probably a little less than that, but it's not bad. It's workmanlike enough. They've put all the bits together in the right order. There's a bit of a mystery element. It's like, oh, are these the ghosts of this dead crew from 180 years ago? No. But they play it well enough. I feel them acting like villains right from the outset is maybe a bit much, but there's nothing objectionable about it.
There's been another episode where they've been possessed, surely. I feel like there's been more than one.
I mean, I feel Troi gets possessed fairly often.
Yeah.
Do you know what? It reminds me a bit of Devil's Due, which is also one that was based on a Star Trek Phase 2 script. It does have an old school sort of Star Trek feel about it. You feel like they could have done this in the original series pretty much.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There's nothing where that trademark of TNG debating the morality of an issue comes in. Not really.
In that sense, I think the fact that it does end up being these prisoners, it's not even a twist, because that's the expectation. It's undoing a twist. Because when they turn around and say, we're the crew of the Essex, then you're like, oh, okay, they're not the prisoners. And then when it turns out that they are, it's kind of like, oh, there you go. It's exactly what I expected it to be. If it was genuinely the crew of the Essex, then you maybe have a morality issue. If their bodies have been taken over by somebody caught up in some strange planet, then there is the morality issue of, okay then, well, why do these people get to live but we don't?
So they've sort of tantalised us with a slightly more interesting version of the story.
But it's maybe it's the more original series or season 1 and 2 to have this more straightforward approach.
I mean, you say it doesn't subvert expectations, but this is one of the few instances in life where the criminals aren't from Essex.
Why does Essex get a starship named after it? Where's the USS Bootle?
I just imagine a situation where if that ship wasn't named in that manner, someone was waking up without their legs in a dustbin.
All our listeners from Essex are turning off now.
It's a huge demographic for us. I do actually quite enjoy some moments of this episode, particularly Chief O'Brien, where it's you can't transport through that. I'll fix the beam, and then I'll go, and then I give him a 50-50 chance of survival. I'm away. I'm supposed to feed my daughter in 15 minutes. I'm sure it'll be fine.
That's the irony. He was never actually possessed. He just didn't want to have to change a nappy. It's, in the long run, going along with it was a lot easier.
Pattern enhancers, though, what a lovely plot device. Some rods that you can turn, and they create a nice glowing triangle.
They're basically just Wi-Fi extenders, aren't they?
Yeah, and it's good to know that they still have that technology in the future. I guess it sort of makes sense, because there's this idea in Star Trek that, you had to go and stand on the transporter pad to get transported, and presumably originally you had to go from one transporter pad to another, like in The Fly or something like that, and now you can do site-to-site transport for stuff, and on Discovery they have transporters on their comm badges, which is very silly. And then Picard, you just went through those transporter doors which are all over Earth. So I guess it's an extension of that idea that you used to have a transporter pad, and so it gives a more stable lock on people for everything within that field.
But if a fly flies into that field,
oh yeah, I mean that would be an absolute disaster. That's where the Klingons came from.
That's why their design changed in Discovery.
I mean, the choices here, Data seems obvious. It's let's give Brent Spiner some hammy acting to do.
Oh, I absolutely turned to my wife during his scene with quiet Klingon and said, would you like some cheese to go with that ham sandwich? Yeah. Someone's very much relishing not playing the standard role, aren't they?
Yes. And that's what led to Picard Season 2. And that should never be allowed to happen. And then you've got Troi, and bless Marina Sirtis, she is really giving it her all. I think my favourite scene in the episode is where she just smacks the old man in the back of the head. Marvellous.
She doesn't have the best dialogue, to be honest.
No, it's incredibly harsh. It has got to be delivered with what I can only call bad guy in a video game voice. Picard, we are enemies, but you must understand my plight. It's all rubbish.
We were brought to this moon over 5 centuries ago from a star system called Uxmal.
And you see when she says that, and you're just like, oh, this is exactly what everybody accuses Star Trek of being. And
Yeah.
that is the problem with this. It is no better than it ought to be. It is very much a surface level, quite silly science fiction plot, and I have no problem with that in general. But it does not elevate the genre of Star Trek in any way.
Well, again, I think it would be passable in the original series, but it feels like an outlier here, especially by the time, we're in season 5 now. I know it might not feel like that given how long we've been at doing this, but 5 seasons in, I kind of expect them not to be at this point again.
I feel when you have them as many episodes as you have, you're going to have episodes that are lesser.
Yeah.
And then you've got Chief O'Brien as the other possessed victim, and I guess that has something to play. There's this idea of this doting father and husband then being violent and hateful towards his wife and child, or certainly the body, and it's like, well, could you have done something with that? Is there something to be said there, something unpleasant to be said there?
Oh no, that's absolutely the most interesting angle of any of this. It's just not massively dwelt upon, is it?
No,
there's a little bit, and at the end as well, but yeah, you'd almost expect it to be the primary drive.
It absolutely could be, but there's not a massive focus on any one of them, really. They're all sort of there, and then you cut to the bridge where you've got the plot of like, we've got to come up with solutions, and then Geordi and Ro wander into Jeffrey's tube and they set up a thing and they try to do the thing, and it's all that classic sort of hostage situation stuff, and it was like, swap me for one of the hostages, and it's like, well, okay, we'll swap you for one of the hostages. It's solid, it's cliched, that there's not a lot in it, I guess. What do you think of Picard and his classic hostage negotiating tactics? He gives himself up for the injured.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that you're talking about a character, and I mean, it'll become more apparent in the next episode we cover, but you're talking about a character where that is your go-to person for moral quandaries, the person that can sort of try and both sides an issue out. But we're not doing any of that. It is just, exchange me for the women and children. All right. I mean, I'd have expected you to do that anyway. But maybe that's because you just had that ego boost of being told, the crew of this ship value your life above anybody else's. Oh, that's nice. I'm sure O'Brien goes back the next day going, oh, it's been another bad day for O'Brien.
It's not trying to be anything more than just
a runaround.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. Going back, trying to desperately avoid saying basically fine. But it's not aiming to do anything more than that. So what can you possibly say?
I don't think Star Trek needs to always say something, but I kind of feel like this is the type of episode, particularly a very talky one, where that's most fitting.
I think it's more noticeable because of it being a bottle episode, that generally, if you're doing a bottle episode, that's your time for a bit of character introspection or something like that. But when we haven't got that, and it's just a run around the standing sets with a brief visit to the planet Hell says, it stands out more as a result. I feel that it's not trying to do more. If we were down on a planet, maybe I wouldn't notice it as much. With a guest star.
You want a guest star now?
And some dancers. Blackjack.
You've got Ro and O'Brien. You've got the two recurring characters that TNG ever managed. What more do you want? The two people who meant that LeVar Burton got less to do.
I mean, at this point, they're setting them both up for Deep Space Nine. Even though I know Ensign Ro didn't end up moving to Deep Space Nine, but they wanted her on there. Because they were already starting plans for it at this point, weren't they?
It's all right. I'm sure she's got a long and fruitful future in Star Trek Legacy. Oh
no.
How did Terry Matalas say that she survived?
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Really? Everything I hear Terry Matalas say about the series afterwards, everything where you think, oh, that was good. I like that they did that. They didn't go for the obvious thing. They did that. You then see an interview with Terry Matalas afterwards going, yeah, we actually wanted to do the really stupid thing, but we couldn't do it in the end, so we just did this instead. Oh, God.
No wonder he blocked me on Twitter. One Star Trek showrunner down, 12 to go.
It's all right, a fair amount of them have dead. I think you've... I think you're fine.
I like to think Maurice Hurley would have blocked me.
Just imagine if Gene Roddenberry was around now, the way the internet is.
I feel that you wouldn't want to go onto his Twitter account and look at his likes.
Oh my god, I was about to make the exact same joke. Men kissing men, women kissing women.
And a dog on a skateboard, but I suppose everyone's going to have their off 5 minutes.
Yeah, I guess the one escape plan, the one big plan they have, the Crusher's going to create a field which is made up of some kind of particle, and that will contain them, but they have to make them experience pain. Some great setup there with Riker at the start. He breaks his arm in that terrible, terrible shuttle crash, and because he's experiencing pain, the glowing balls of consciousness don't want to go inside him.
Oh God, it's World War Z, isn't it? The film version, I mean.
You know what would have been a good twist? If they thought, well, physical pain impacts them. What if we could cause mental pain and that gets rid of them?
You want the crew walking around like Marvin the paranoid android, incredibly depressed?
No, just finds out who are inhabiting the bodies and then cause them mental anguish that makes them release the bodies.
You're a terrible transporter, Chief.
No, I'm not saying O'Brien. I'm saying who's inhabiting his body.
All right.
Now, who can we give trauma to today?
So, I guess the final conclusion, Picard cleverly sends them to Cargo Bay 4. Now, Cargo Bay 4, because they can blow the hatch out into space. Unlike all the other cargo bays, which I assume are internal, because Cargo Bay 4 is on the outside, which I would have thought was common to all cargo bays, but Cargo Bay 4, Picard takes them to.
After suggesting that they go there in a tone of voice that's telling Crusher, I have a plan, and should very easily be picked up on by all of the entities that have taken over the rest of the crew, that he's playing them. I mean, it's not subtle. He might as well have just gone, I don't have anything that I suggest we do, so I suggest we just go to this room. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know why they didn't go, well, that's a bit funny. Why don't we just go to a transporter room, please? Would that be okay? Is that okay with you? We'll just go to the transporter room.
What am I saying? I've got the gun. Let's go now.
So they go to the cargo bay, and they all go, we're all willing to die, so you better go back down to your prison planet. Okay?
The issue is that if they blew the hatch, everyone would have died that they'd beamed up, and themselves would have as well. Whereas if they beam back down to the surface, there's always the chance somebody else could stumble upon them.
Well, you've got to play the long game in these circumstances.
Yeah, although I would have thought at that point the Enterprise would have, dropped some sort of message to say, just don't go anywhere near this planet. There's a lot of angry beams of light living there.
I mean, I imagine they eventually got around to cataloguing it. I feel like there was some kind of opportunity to have a moral conversation about the brutal prison system that this alien race has, and do entities have a right to die is eternal suffering valid? But it seems to me they've not been rehabilitated at all, because their first instinct is to take hostages and beat someone up and then shoot everybody. So perhaps they deserve to be there.
But they have been trapped for 200 years. We have no idea what their original crime was. They may have stolen a loaf of bread for all we know.
Well, if you do that, the best way to rehabilitate yourself is to steal silver and then become a mayor of a town and adopt a child. It's a great way to actually redeem yourself and then go to heaven, sing a song. I've not read the book.
Let it never be said that we're not niche.
You know, I feel like this will be one of our shorter episodes. However, what is there to say? I feel this is nobody's favourite. No one, well, it will be someone's favourite. They'll write in. This is just an episode of Star Trek The Next Generation that's quite average, and you probably wouldn't want to watch it again. It's fine. It was good for syndication.
I mean, genuinely, the best thing that the Nitpicker's Guide can conjure up for being a great classic line from the episode is Riker saying, genuinely, yeah, pretty sure that's broken.
That classic line.
That's listed under the heading Great Lines. Doing his John Wayne impersonation. I mean, it's a bit of a stretch.
Okay, well, let's see if anybody said anything interesting behind the scenes as we visit Quickfire.
Quickfire.
As we said earlier, Brent Spiner commented, I always love to play another type of character. The challenge here was to make sure my character didn't sound or act like Lore, and I don't think he did. It's really fun when you get these curves because so much of data is already defined. When you get to play someone else and let loose like Leonard Nimoy occasionally got to do on the old show, it's really rewarding.
I mean, I kind of feel like any time Brent Spiner is let off the leash, he pretty much always gives this performance, whatever character.
Yeah, he does a sort of art shouty bad guy.
Yeah, it's exactly the same in Picard where he's running people down with his car.
Yeah, but that was brilliant.
I mean, yes, okay, that's the best part of season 2.
Yeah, he always he emphasises people's names wrong when he's playing a bad guy. He will go, Picard, Klingon. You know, he'll do that. That's a real bit of flair from him there. The working titles for this episode included The Invaders, Terror in 10 Forward, and Feeling Poorly.
What?
I can't give context to that. I imagine someone was being sarcastic.
I like to think it was 4 o'clock on a Friday. Someone submits that and goes, that's it, lads. I'm buying shawarma. Everyone in.
So, Brannon Braga, who was one of the many writers on this episode, said, the first time I wrote it, I thought, bottle show, 10 forward, Picard and Troi talk. Mike Pillar said, don't be afraid to write 7 or 8 page scenes with Picard and Troi. I said, okay, Mike, I won't. Jesus, 7 or 8 pages. I had a tough time writing that, and when I turned it in, Pillar said he felt we'd taken it as far as it could go, and we shouldn't produce it. If it had been produced as I had written it, the episode would have been a little too familiar as a hostage show. So what happened was Herb Wright had just come in and Mike said we needed some new blood and gave it to Herb. Together we came up with the twist of them claiming to be the ghosts, and I think that's what brought the show level up and gave a dimension of mystery and twists that it really needed. So, yeah, at one point it was much worse than it actually turned out.
Well, I mean, having said there's dearth of memorable content, I'm not sure what you'd pick out as a memorable moment in this. I mean, what would you say is probably the most memorable moment in the episode? If you had to pick one. Anything, literally just a moment that if you were trying to think of the episode, that's the image that would come to your head.
I think Riker turning on the pattern enhancer because it's a big visual.
Or Picard getting strangled.
Well, Phil Farron goes with a slightly different route. In the Nitpicker's Guide, Phil says that the great moment from the episode is that when Riker recognises Data's attempt to commandeer the ship, Riker kills all the power, and then moments later, the rest of the crew on the bridge that haven't been possessed get to work at the controls. This seems exactly right. This is, after all, the flagship of the Federation. Shouldn't it have this type of very efficient methodology for dealing with attempts at commandeering the Enterprise?
That was not a standout for me.
I mean, it takes all sorts.
I think it's clear that even Phil Farron is struggling here.
Everyone's got a word count to hit.
Well, you say that it's not an outstanding episode. However, this episode was nominated for an Emmy for Outstanding Individual Achievement in Sound Editing for a Series.
Oh, off.
And Brent Spiner was nominated for Best Supporting Actor.
I'm genuinely not sure if you're joking or not.
I'm joking.
Oh, thank Christ for that.
There were twins used to portray young Molly. And in addition to those twins, a stunt prop baby was used for filming in 10 Forward. Why did they need a stunt prop baby? There's no bit where they kick the baby or anything like that.
I mean, my guess is that they only had a baby in close-ups, and the rest of the time Keiko was holding not a baby. But still, I would say 10 Forward, not a great place for Keiko O'Brien and Worf, indeed. They wouldn't want to go back there. They've already been stuck in a bottle show in 10 Forward.
Was it 10 Forward where she gave birth?
Yes. Delivered by Worf.
He's got to go back to 10 Forward to get his prune juice.
After that point, that's all he drinks. Marina Sirtis, doing her own stunt, flung herself back onto her coccyx, breaking it. She was the only member in the scene to do the stunt herself, despite her face being barely visible in the finished shot.
This gave them inspiration for next week's episode.
Yeah, well that's a shame. That sounds quite painful.
And Marina Sirtis did claim it could have been Worf in Troi's costume and we wouldn't have known the difference. I think I would disagree there.
Do you think?
But I would like to see that. So if Terry Matalas is doing season 4 of Picard, there's your idea.
I'm not sure he's listening.
No.
Not anymore, he's not.
Well, that is another episode over. We've not recorded one of these in a while, and I'm sure you can't tell. We'll be back again soon, where we will be talking about ethics, which does not feature the Essex. Until then, goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.